Now, the big story here tonight concerning Michael Jordan's physical conditions. He is suffering from flu-like symptoms.
It was Game 5 in the NBA Finals between the Chicago Bulls and the Utah Jazz, and the word was Michael Jordan was absolutely sick, and yet he put up 38 points, including the game-winning three-pointer. This dude was determined, from being sick and still playing to retiring and coming back to win NBA titles, breaking records, and highlighting his explosive dunks to the point it turns to a brand that goes worldwide. Michael Jordan's 15 years in the NBA were absolute greatness, filled with moments of explosiveness between overall gameplay, iconic performances, and broken records. Let's take a walk through Michael Jordan's explosive career highlights and what made him arguably the greatest player of all time. His explosive playing style and gravity-defying dunks quickly made him a fan favorite, and it wasn't long before he was racking up points and breaking records like it was nobody's business. As Michael fought being sick from food poisoning from a pizza he ate the night before and was up at 2 a.m. throwing up, he still showed up to play Game 5 in '97 against the Utah Jazz. There weren't many underdog stories left that Michael had to overcome. At this point, he already won 4 NBA titles after completely defying the odds from being cut in high school, having to prove himself in college, and not being the first overall pick in the 1984 NBA draft. So this moment became a new chapter to his story. Despite lacking the energy and not playing well in the first quarter with only 4 points, he turned things around on the second quarter, putting up 17 points. But then quarter number 3 was another downfall with only 2 points. Michael was clearly having an up and down game, but this was easily understood with being sick. By the fourth quarter, the Bulls were down 69-77 at 10-19 in the game, but something in Michael clicked. Within the next 2 minutes, Michael scored 7 points to help close the gap and then bring the Bulls to lead the game 79-77. The game continued back and forth until the last 47 seconds, where Michael shot the game-winning three-pointer to break the tie 85-85 and hold down the game to win 90-88. Michael finished the game with 38 points, which is absolutely insane. Those are points all stars put up on a good game, and he did it while being sick. But where did all this self-determination come from? Well, let's go back to 1968. Michael grew up with 4 other siblings, and they were all competitive kids growing up. Their dad always pushed him to try to win and never give up. But for Michael, it's always like he had a chip on his shoulder. If he was told he couldn't do something, it's like he would take it as a personal challenge and work at overcoming it just to prove you wrong. It was also mentioned that Michael's older brother, Larry, was known to be the better basketball player when they were kids, and their dad was putting his efforts into Larry. Because of this, Michael was determined to get his dad's approval growing up. His determination was to be just as good or better than his brother. We know the classic story. Mike was cut from his high school basketball team in his sophomore year of high school. But what you may not know is that he eventually made the team. Once again, going back to someone telling him he can't do something, so he took it as a personal challenge. He worked hard all summer long so he could make the team. In his junior year, he made the team, and his coaches mentioned that his improvement was substantial. On top of that, they could see he was a special player. Michael stood out. Eventually, he was invited to the UNC basketball camp, and within the 5 days he was there, they thought he was the best player in America. It's clear that this guy is here to win. Prior to Michael joining the Bulls, they didn't have much momentum going for them and were on the path to becoming a dying team. It was Michael's 3rd game in his first season in the NBA, and the Chicago Bulls were against the Milwaukee Bucks. By the fourth quarter, they were down 85-76. At the time, if teams were losing by the fourth quarter, it was pretty much a wrap. They would take the loss and get ready to move on to the next game. But Michael came into the conversation and said, the game's not over with. During the fourth quarter, the Bulls made a comeback and scored 40 points to beat the Bucks, 116-110. Michael scored 22 points in that quarter alone and had a 37-point game overall. From this point on, Michael was known to being the best player on the Bulls.
Seconds remaining, Jordan with a seam. What a jam!
Michael's start to his career was absolutely explosive, and it didn't stop there. Or did it? It was Michael's second season. Michael goes for a layup and lands on his foot wrong. He ended up breaking a bone in his foot that put him out for 6 months in the regular season, only playing 18 games in total. The kid that brought so much momentum to his team had to take a seat, but Michael's self-determination brought him back with fire. Michael managed to come back in time for the end of the season and the NBA playoffs. At the time, the Boston Celtics were the best team in the league, led by Larry Bird. Chicago barely made the playoffs, being the 8th seed team, and they ended up playing against the Celtics in the first round. During Game 2, Michael's athleticism explodes. He made a record for the most points in a single NBA playoff game ever scored, for a total of 63 points. To this day, no one has beaten that record. Keep in mind, this was also before the three-point line was used as much as it is today. So Michael was basically scoring all these points the hard way. Despite losing to the Celtics, who also went on to become the NBA champions that year, a comment came from Larry Bird after the game basically saying that Michael was God in gym shorts. So in his rookie season, he's putting up 37-point games. In his second season, he puts up 63 points in the NBA playoffs. This kid was becoming an iconic player quickly, but let's look at something else that revolutionized Michael as an iconic player. During the 1988 NBA dunk contest, it went back and forth between Michael and Dominique Wilkins of the Atlanta Hawks. In the end, Michael came out on top after finishing his last dunk with the iconic jump from the free throw line. Michael's dunks were absolutely explosive. That same year, Michael won the first of his 5 MVP awards, which really solidified himself as the most explosive player in the league. He was like a human rocket, blasting past defenders and turning the underdog he was into becoming a trailblazer. The way he soared through the air from the free throw line or with his tongue out became an image in itself. It was through Mike's dunks that eventually turned into the Jordan brand. Let's take a look at some of the most explosive dunks from Michael Jordan. It was the Bulls against the Knicks in the fourth quarter. Sam Vincent takes the ball down the court and sees Michael by himself and sends a lob pass to make the alley-oop. Now, if you thought this was the last time Michael showed up on the Knicks, check out this next dunk. It was the first round of the NBA playoffs during Game 3. Michael is taking pressure in the lane against Charles Oakley and John Starks. He finesses both of them and heads towards the net to face Patrick Ewing and makes an explosive dunk on him. Now, we have to admit, not all of Michael's dunks were alley-oops or driving to the net. Some of them were also recovered missed shots. Let's head over to December 4th, 1992. It's the Bulls against the Blazers. Scottie Pippen makes a free throw attempt and misses, but Michael comes out of nowhere to recover the shot with an explosive dunk. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Michael likes to have his tongue out when he plays. In the 1991 NBA Finals during Game 4, it's Michael at the three-point line and then makes a drive to the net to face Sam Perkins. But he's just too late and Michael attacks the rim hard. The Bulls went on to win their first NBA title ever. Speaking of NBA titles, Michael went on to win 6 NBA championships in the 6 NBA Finals he made it to. Many people argue this stat as Michael being the GOAT, but there are a lot of other players who have undefeated NBA Finals appearances and won as well. So then, how does Michael stand out? What sets him apart from everyone else? We already know he battled through being sick and still played Utah in '97, also winning an NBA title that year, put the Chicago Bulls on the map in his first season, scored 63 points in the NBA playoffs in his second season, and showcased his explosive, iconic dunks and gameplay over the years. When Michael won his first 3 NBA championships between '91 to '93, he became the first player in NBA history to win 3 straight Finals MVP awards. After coming off his three-peat, he decided to retire and claimed he lost desire to play basketball. Michael was dealing with a lot of personal problems and pressure regarding the media creating speculations around him, and that same year, Michael's dad, James Jordan Sr., was murdered. In '94, Michael decided to play baseball and signed a minor league contract with the Chicago White Sox. Michael was already thinking of leaving the NBA to play baseball the year before, but that's a whole other conversation. Baseball was a dream his dad always envisioned to see his son play, and Michael wanted to pursue that for him. In a way, it helped Michael clear his headspace with everything that was going on at the time.
"Quote unquote, I'm back." That's all Jordan said on Saturday. That was really all Jordan needed to say.
Michael shocked the world once again and came back to the NBA near the end of the season, only playing 17 games. Despite being away for 18 months, Michael's return was as if he never left. In his first 5 games, he averaged 30.8 points per game, and by his 5th game against the New York Knicks, he put up 55 points. Michael's complete return to the NBA had fans in the sports world buzzing. During this season, the Chicago Bulls made a historic record of 72 wins and 10 losses. On top of that, they won their 4th NBA title, and Michael was the NBA Finals MVP. Throughout that year, he was the NBA scoring leader with 30.4 points per game, an NBA All-Star and the All-Star Game MVP, All-Defensive First Team, and the NBA MVP. Talking about making a return. The Bulls went on to win the NBA championship the next 2 years, repeating their second three-peat with Michael leading the team. What made Michael stand out from others who had undefeated NBA Finals appearances was he retired, came back, and did it all over again. Not many athletes have transitioned from one sport to the next and then came back to accomplish even more than before, breaking records, defying the odds, and making history. On top of that, there hadn't been a team to win a three-peat since the Boston Celtics, who actually won 8 NBA titles in a row from 1959 to 1966. So within the time frame of Mike's era, there was no one else such as Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, or the Detroit Pistons to win a three-peat. This is why so many people argue that Michael is the GOAT, and some think this debate is already over. Check out this next video between Michael Jordan and LeBron James to see what's that all about.